Good evening. Welcome to the Azeroth review for another week. For those who are new, potentially, this is where we just discuss anything to do with World of Warcraft that you're interested in, or I suppose Warcraft in general, and then we see what we've come up with. I was actually going to be talking about something specific today, but then it sort of went a little bit wrong, so we don't worry about that just yet. I've now actually got to catch up on a load of things. That I've been putting off till after BlizzCon. But, actually, I'm just going to check something. Mostly what I've noticed this week is an awful lot of ranged players going to Blizzard. What WTF? Because Mithrax has got a little bit more uncomfortable for them. In fact, one of the topics I was going to talk about potentially was the fact that this has happened. I mean, this happens, I think, in general. But it's happened quite a lot in BFA where they've had to make changes to things after it's gone live. And then I think they've sometimes... I think it's their attitude to Band-Aid fixing. So then they create more problems with it. So Mithrax, for example, it was... The orb thing, mechanic, was obviously a screw you to melee. It was just complete screw you. And... because the level of coordination required to have a decent number of melee around the boss, which you could do, but it required much greater coordination. It required people to open the bloody eyes. And you could say, well, you know, raiders should be able to do that, but most don't. So realistically, for an easier life, a raid leader is going to say, well, let's take fewer melee, let's just take loads of ranged, where everyone's got an even chance. Whereas now they're saying that mechanic's not going to affect melee. Presumably, like in any such effect, which will only affect range now, you know, there has to be a certain number of ranged. So all the ranged players are going, hang on a minute, it wasn't exactly a fantastic mechanic even for us, and now it's only going to hit us. So what they've done is they've removed the compulsion for raid leaders to not want to take lots of melee, or even a decent number, to ranged having an actively more unpleasant time than what they should do. But anyway, good evening, everyone. What do I teach? Science. What's the best lecture I've ever heard? It was actually a bit of a piss take lecture, actually, the best one I ever heard, because it was an actual proper lecture, but it was someone visiting and doing a lecture, and where I went to university, basically, it was Manchester. This is the place where they split the atom and developed the first programmable computer, or, you know, all that good stuff. And but there technically were at the time, technically 4 universities there. So there was the University of Manchester, which is sometimes called the Victoria University of Manchester. There was UMIST, which used to be a part of Manchester University and then split, and then has gone back to it again. So that is now back... but that was the technology bit. And then there was the Metropolitan University, and then there was Salford. And this lecturer came in, and he said hello to everyone. Everyone said hello back. And he says, you can always tell when you're at the University of Manchester. He says, because all you have to do is say hello to the students. He says, at Manchester, they say hello back. At UMIST, they just stare at you. At Salford, they write it down. And at the Met, they write it down and spell it wrong. And there was a friend I knew who went to the Met as well. And I told this joke to his dad. His dad wasn't happy about it. But that was it. Those are my favourite lectures, when someone takes the piss. But the most enjoyed lectures I ever had were in my first year. Because I was saying this to someone today, actually. Different universities have a different attitude towards students. So... there's the top level universities, the ones that do the super serious international research. They don't tend to view students very favorably, because you've got to bear in mind the people actually doing those lectures, they're not teachers, they're researchers, and they're doing serious research as well, groundbreaking stuff if you're at a top university, and they have to lecture. Now, some of them quite like it, you know, and they think it's important. They gave all those lecturers to us in the first year. So we had all the fun lecturers in the first year. In the second year, we had all the miserable arseholes who couldn't be dealing with us, who would just literally come in, throw some acetates on an OHP for an hour and then piss off again. But yeah, the first year lectures were good. Those were the ones who used to do demonstrations and stuff and set fire to things and fire lasers. So, oh, what can we cut through with this laser? Stuff like that. But anyway, but yes. So should we get on to World of Warcraft? Where else was I? I was talking about something. Oh yeah, Mithrax. Because it occurs to me, and this is what I want to do a video on actually, because I think there's another thing where Blizzard have applied a sticking plaster fix to something, but there's, I think they've lost sight of what it's all about. So Azeroth gear, obviously there's the problem with Azeroth gear that if you get Azeroth gear at a particular level, let's say heroic mode, and it's got these traits on it, and then you get the same piece of Azeroth gear from Mythic. Now it could be the same thing. You could get it like, you know, that Azeroth piece at a +7 and compared to a +8 from your Mythic cache. Whatever, it's the same gear, but one's higher item level than the other. And the problem we had to begin with was you might not be able to wear the higher item level piece because you might not be able to unlock the traits with the level of your neck. So that was a limiting factor. So then they move to a plan where they say, okay, so what we'll do is we'll have that trait unlock at the same neck level. So it doesn't matter whether you get that piece, LFR, normal, heroic, or mythic, it's going to unlock at the same level. So if ever you have a piece of Azeroth, like say an Azeroth helm, and you get the same Azeroth helm at a higher item level, you will always wear it because you'll be able to unlock the same traits. The problem with that is, I'm thinking now with the way they're going with it, they're applying these little fixes which do solve a problem, but it removes the Heart of Azeroth. The important piece of gear is supposed to be the Heart of Azeroth. That's supposed to be the thing that was given to us by Azeroth herself, and we're not used. It's becoming much less important, you know. And I think Hakili he had the best idea I've heard, and this would solve the problem, but still in a way that would make the neck useful to us. And that is, he suggested that a trait unlocks at a particular item level, but then scales neck level, and scales up with that neck level. So that way, you know, you'd still, if you had the normal piece, would still wear the mythic piece, but you don't have to, it's not in discrete steps. If you see, I mean, it's still discrete because it's still level by level, but it's not have these huge quantum leaps. It just scales up naturally to a cap, you know, and that way the neck level becomes important. In fact, it becomes more important because every extra level you get on your neck becomes, you know, you're getting an upgrade from it. Like now, I know if I go up one more neck level, I will be able to unlock another trait. But then the one after that, so that could motivate me potentially to do it. But the one after that won't. So I won't be as motivated. I know eventually it'll unlock another, but I'm not as motivated to do it. Because if I do it, I'm not going to get any benefit other than a higher item level on my neck. And that's relatively minor. But anyway, here in the issue I have a holiday called Thanksgiving. Okay, it's Thanksgiving today. I knew it's round about November time. I never know exactly when it is. Although it does usually come quite close to Black Friday, doesn't it? Which is another American invention. So it's like on the one hand, you have this little holiday where you give thanks, you know, for living in America. And then a very short time after, you have another little event where you go and beat the shit out of people fighting over a dress. They tried to, do you know what? They've actually tried to introduce it in Britain, Black Friday. We do technically have Black Friday, but no one has fights because we're all too polite. It's like... So people, it's just basically a discount. It's basically where shops try and sell their shit that's stuck in their warehouse that they're trying to get rid of. And we all go off and buy it. We don't have any fights or anything. I've never heard of any fights anyway. Did you see the guy who trashed that computer store when he tried to return, what was it, his Fallout 76? I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. Anyway. What's my opinion on moustaches? I don't have an opinion on moustaches, you know. Am I supposed to have an opinion on moustaches? Is it as a hot topic? I thought they were just bits of hair underneath your nose. Yeah, Black Friday just after Thanksgiving. So you have your Thanksgiving. You're supposed to be nice and full on turkey, as if I don't know. I don't even see the appeal of that. I understand from a right. We can't show things like that. I don't know what that is. We can't have. I can understand why you have turkey on Thanksgiving, obviously, because but I've never understood like the appeal of it personally. I think there's a reason people don't really have it for the rest of the year. Actually, that was a good one. At work, at work this week, they're talking about the Christmas dinner, right? So basically, we break up on a Thursday. The students finish on a Wednesday. The idea is we come in the morning, we get some work done, and then we have a Christmas dinner. I always hide from it, by the way. Basically, what I do is I wait for everyone to go in for the staff Christmas dinner. I wait till everyone's occupied, and then I sneak out early. But anyway, so they were doing this vote. Should we have a buffet or should we have a sit-down meal? So everyone gets to vote, and the boss was saying, "Oh, we're getting our turkey from such and such a place, like this posh place," and then someone in the audience just basically started laughing, and he went, "Are we not getting it from there?" And she says it's all pre-sliced, and he was going, "Oh, I was told from it's such and such a place," and she said basically, "Well, I'll tell you what, you try asking for a leg and see what happens." So I think it's all pre-sliced that they're getting. But anyway, it doesn't matter. We don't seem to be talking about Warcraft very much, are we? We get together, eat a lot, then get in line. Once the food coma is over, we get pissy at each other, then fight. Yeah, I've never understood that. Fighting over. I mean, it's not even like... It's shit. It's the shit that is clogging up their warehouses anyway. Most of the time, people buying these things didn't want to buy. I mean, I can understand it. Like, if something's there, and it might be, I mean, last year, for example, I got a deal on. I needed a new phone, so I waited for Black Friday and then got one on discount. I wasn't wanting the latest model or anything anyway, so that was fine. But most of the people don't even want it. It's just like, oh, it's on sale. Oh, it's 50% off. I'd better get it because you never know. I might need it. Anyway, yeah, Fallout 76 not doing so well. No, at the moment, you'd think, actually, wouldn't you? It's a pretty bad time for the games industry, isn't it? Fallout 76 going wrong, all going wrong for Blizzard and Activision. It's not a good time, is it, in gaming? You don't understand the hate Fallout is getting. I mean, I don't know. I don't play these games. But obviously, it has not exactly hit the right note, is it, with the players? What's my opinions on Blizzard's bright future, considering they're working on a lot of projects right now? Well, my only concern ever with Blizzard is I just don't... It's the same with World of Warcraft. Like, World of Warcraft is not... The teams are not coordinated. And what I worry about is if the teams in World of Warcraft are not coordinated, that suggests... That's from on high. That is someone very senior. So that suggests that Blizzard as a company is not very well run from an organisational point of view. They've got by on, like, very creative people coming up with brilliant games. Although, then there was the news this week that they're removing the bonuses. So that's presumably going to see a lot of their most creative talent then leave because effectively their wages have been slashed in half. So I really don't know what's going on at Blizzard at the moment. I seriously do not know. But in terms of working on a lot of projects, I mean, if they've got their own teams, it's sort of fine. Where you've got, obviously they do have people move between teams, and that would be fine if I had any faith in their organisational ability, but I don't. My opinion on Junker Gnomes as a rumoured allied... No. Of course, I will not play a gnome of any description. In fact, when it comes to Christmas time and people start, putting or even like, they turn me into gnomes, they think it's funny. I have a macro that removes such things when people gnome me. So, yes. But I would not at all be open to playing one. Even a Junker Gnome, which I'd probably be less, disgusted with. I've seen videos fighting over dresses and televisions. I've never seen anyone fight over a Tickle Me Elmo, I have to say. I'll tell you what, a fight over a Stretch Armstrong would be funny. I'd pay to see that. Don't forget EA in their insanity. Yeah, but EA It's not exactly newsworthy to talk about EA's latest baffling move. I mean, they keep making money, so I suppose, from a business sense, they do what they do. The bonuses were rolled into their paychecks. The thing is, though, it's very common. Okay. I mean, it's very common, obviously, to have bonuses in an industry like that for motivation. But the bottom line is, how much money are they getting? If it's going to be way less than they have been getting, all of a sudden, another company could look more attractive to them. So, if that's the plan, then it's a risk, isn't it? Oh, I see. So, okay. The bonus thing turned out fake. Apparently, at staff request, it's now spread over the year. So it's just spread out over the year and not in a lump sum. Okay. Senior people get less money, the new ones get a bit more. Well, why should anyone get less money? As long as if they haven't got a pay cut, then it's fine. That makes perfect sense then. That's fine. EA has been evil since the 90s. This always has been, hasn't it? You honestly don't think we'll see quality games from Blizzard anymore on the same level as Diablo 2, Warcraft, etc.? Activision has almost completely taken over and their business. They are certainly business focused. I don't think there's any denying that now. I think, however, there is more revenue potential in World of Warcraft than they're taking advantage of. So I don't think the foxes are completely in the hen house. But that being said, yes. The team in charge of Classic WoW seems passionate. I don't know. I've not... we'll have to see how passionate they are after they get mauled by all the, Classic WoW Nazis when it comes out. They're already getting savaged. Might be a pay increase. Yeah, I mean, that's all fine then. I mean, I only went by, as the news, as it began to emerge. I've been extremely busy the last few days, so anything that's emerged since then, I don't know. So I thought it would be odd. I thought it would be strange to just straight away encourage your most creative staff to leave. It didn't sound sensible. So yeah, if it's just a change in the way it's done, then that's fine. It's a non-issue now, then, isn't it? And your day when people didn't like products, they didn't buy it. Now people say the cruelest thing they can think of and make death threats on the seller. Yeah. Well, I mean, this is to do with the ease of which you can attack people, particularly with social media. And people believe themselves, and sometimes it's true, to be largely anonymous. People also forget, I mean, it depends which country you're in. In this country, for example, then you would report that to the police. And if the police were able to trace that person, they would be up in court, because that is illegal. There's no difference between sending a death threat via Twitter than there is sending it in the mail. And it's treated as such. Activision have been a disgrace since the 80s. I don't know. They've made some good games. Big titles poorly made. You don't understand how they've been around for so long. Well, any business is not always around because it produces the best quality, but because it produces the best marketing. Any number of products over the years have triumphed over better products because of marketing. But I don't know that Activision's been awful. There's a lot of hyperbole seasoned upon the failure of Diablo Immortal. Diablo Immortal is not... It's not a failure. It's not even out yet. I don't think it'll be a failure at all. The only failure with Diablo Immortal was announcing it to a group of people who weren't going to be playing it. That was the failure. The game itself is not a failure. How can it be? It's not even out yet. But I really seriously doubt it will be a failure. I have no doubt it'll be a financial success. Do I think Blizz could ever segue into making a WoW in virtual reality? Well, it could. I don't think it should at the current time. Absolutely could. In fact, when virtual reality gets genuinely good, and not like the crap we've got now, but if genuinely good, then fantasy adventure games and role-playing games are one of the very obvious outlets for it. But I don't necessarily think that it would enhance the experience at the moment. In fact, it might be quite disorientating. You'll enjoy the new Warcraft 3 Reforged. Yeah, if I was still into RTS games, I would 100% be very much looking forward to Warcraft 3 Reforged. You know, it looks spectacular. I'm very happy for the people who still love playing Warcraft 3. Because that, isn't it funny, right? Let's just compare Warcraft 3 with World of Warcraft. So Warcraft 3 is a game that has been played obviously since before World of Warcraft, some years before. And it kept on being played. People still played it. Blizzard supported it. And now they've brought out what is basically still Warcraft 3. There's with some updates and things like that. And I like to say a massively remastered version of it. And everyone's delighted. World of Warcraft, right, which the vanilla version was very quickly buggered about with, so it didn't really exist. Therefore, people couldn't really play it except on private servers. They now effectively want to redo that. But anything that they do that's anything like an update or modern, and people shit on it. Isn't it strange? This complete opposite, contradictive, opinions. You know, Warcraft 3 is getting a modern update. Fantastic. WoW Classic. Oh, there's a couple of things that weren't exactly the same as when it first came out. Oh my God, the world is caving in. It just seems a madness to me. You're sad to see all the faction imbalance happening. Very sad. Well, yeah, I mean, what is interesting is that Blizzard, for the first time that I have heard, are actually acknowledging it as a problem. You know, even, the previous BlizzCon, BFA, when that was announced, and someone specifically asked the question about factions. And Ian's response was, yeah, you just play whichever faction you want, it's fine. And now they're acknowledging that, no, it's not. In both PvP and PvE. And the thing is, what I got from that interview is it's not even the raiding that is, even though that's where the most hideous imbalance is, that's not even been the trigger for having to admit it. It's the fact that, I don't want to say war mode's failure, because I don't think it's a failure, but it's the fact that it fundamentally prevents war mode being what it's supposed to be, what it's expected to be. Anyway, all right, going back to your previous answer. See, this is why, for people asking, stop asking. This is why I can't put timestamps in the video when it's stop going live, because topics keep coming back. So, Moustache's answer was a bit anticlimactic. Anyway, wow, related. Oh, God, I thought you were going to say something cunning. I don't know. What do you want to say about Moustache's? Do I think the experiment with mythic gating due to Hall of Fame is a successful one? No. I think it's a good thing to do, don't get me wrong. But it has not changed the behaviour of the community. So if it had an aim to achieve in terms of trying to rebalance the factions, obviously it itself was never going to work. I'll tell you what I thought might have been more interesting though. Instead of just having that top 100 thing, if they'd have had specific achievements for, say, top 100, top 200, top 500, top 1,000... that might have been more interesting. But as it is, no. It's not changing the behaviour at all. They're forgetting that in the business of entertaining and tuning into the industry of lining the shareholders' pockets. Well, okay. I mean, that's what all businesses have to do. Once they have shares, they have to then maximise them. Do I know about anything of the Lord of the Rings re-release? Well, I know that's that they're bringing out... a version of Lord of the Rings Online as it was from way back when. It seems to be all the rage. I think a few games have done it, haven't they? A few MMOs have done this. Which is what makes me think that Blizzard doing it for World of Warcraft wasn't necessarily completely independent. You know, maybe they just thought that this is the new trend now. You watched a video complain about sharding that's planned for WoW Classic. So when 100% of the player base is starting day one in the same 8 zones, this guy wants thousands of players hunting 5 boars. Yeah, it won't be thousands of players hunting 5 boars. It'll be every single player getting logged off because the lag will be insane. It will be worse than the opening of the gates of Anchorage. which is going to be a thing. They've said that event is supported in the WoW Classic. So that's going to be interesting. But yeah, of course, they have to have... It's not like sharding's going to be throughout the game. It's going to be there in like the start, like for the first few days in like the starting areas, and then it's going to be there for like cities or something, I think they said. And that's it. I assume they'll also use it for the opening the gates, but maybe they won't. Maybe part of the WoW Classic experience is actually not getting to see the opening of the gates of Anchorage because everything stops. And then you end up somewhere where you didn't want to be. You don't see why Alliance has fewer people. Walking the best race, no. Yeah, but you've got gnomes to counteract it. Doesn't work. And it's only the most serious people that don't play Alliance. There's lots of Alliance accounts, but a lot of them don't have a character at level cap. How do you get your guild mates to stop sucking on Mythic Cahoots who finally kill at this reset? You can't. That's ultimately it. That's the vast majority of Mythic Raiders, even in some good guilds, like, don't really try and learn mechanics. They just bumble around until it dies. If Blizzard make the gnomes turn traitor and join the Horde, that may make people faction change. That's right. In fact, if they did a swapsy, you know, because Sylvanas would probably be well up for this. She already secretly in her own head wishes the Tauren would just go for the Alliance. She said that in the book. She just doesn't want to expedite it because she sort of needs them. But let's say the Horde the Tauren went from Horde to Alliance, and then the gnomes went from the Alliance to the Horde. Sylvanas would probably quite like that, because then the gnomes and the goblins could make all sorts of Azerite, you know, doomsday weapons, and you know, and should get rid of the bovine pains in the arse. If they introduce LFG, they're not introducing any modern systems into Classic WoW. It's just the architecture. You know, that's all they've done. They had to build the game, basically. Well, not from scratch, obviously, but, you know, from bare bones. And also, I think, to be fair, you're never going to get the Classic WoW experience anyway. It's an absolute nonsense, because who's going to go and find a 486 computer or a Pentium 1 with Windows 95 or 98 or something to play it on? Nonsense. So you're not going to get the classic experience. We've all got modern computers, and there needs to be some modern architecture so the bloody thing will run. And they don't want a shit quality game coming out. If the gameplay is bad, then that's fine. It's what people have asked for. But they still want to put out a quality product, I think. You can't have both classic WoW or modern. Sharding is modern, so not... Oh, behave yourself. You can make your guild mates better by finding a new guild. You say that, but they're bad in all guilds. Not most guilds. Or you'll have some, obviously. The better the guild, the fewer they have. Because you've got to bear it in mind, some classes are easier to play in Mythic Raiding than others. So you will naturally, in some... and also some classes are just too rare, and guilds can't get enough of them. So you'll always get players who are not necessarily all that great ending up in guilds that are way higher than they would be if they played another class, just because of that. So, and those people will always cock you for you. Like, you know, just a little story. In Wall of the Draenor, when we were on... what's her name? The Eridar thing. Valhari. And there's a mechanic in the final phase where range can get that pulsing thing on them, and they've got to get the hell out of the way. You can't run out of the way quickly enough. So there's a gateway we set up. So as soon as the range get this mechanic on them, use the gateway, get ahead, otherwise we're all dead. And we had this mage, and he was always top of damage on the tries and progress, but he could never, ever click that gateway. Nothing we did to try and suggest tactics would help. He was incapable of clicking this gateway. And it got to the point where I'd have kicked it from the raid and got someone else in. I don't care his top damage. Because he was dooming us to fail every single time if he got this mechanic. But the raid leader, just his attitude was, he's doing the most damage, we're not kicking him. So he just basically kept raging at this mage, going, and eventually he just snapped. He says, "It's fine, don't worry about it. We just now know that as soon as you get that mechanic in phase 3, we're wiping. We just have to keep going until we get a try where you don't get that mechanic." And so he was kept in the raid and got that kill. Obviously, he didn't get that mechanic on the kill. And he got that kill even though he was fucking useless and couldn't actually do a basic mechanic like click a gateway, just because he was a mage and doing shitloads of damage. And that is unfortunately the way of it sometimes. Obviously, you can't have a guild full of such people and still do well. But you can do very well with one or two like that. Anyway, where are we? Horde will give Pandara... everyone's got Pandara, behave. Alliance Cahoon, 100 kills are 20 days later than Horde hundreds. Don't worry, all is fine. Yeah, but you say 3 to 4 resets, it's like double the amount of time, isn't it? Pretty more close to, not quite double. It's a significant amount of extra time. But you're saying Alliance is dead is a dead meme. It's not. A certain level, you can't do it. You've got to bear in mind, look at the work, because it's not just about how much time it took longer for those Alliance guilds to get it. It's the fact that you can be in a World 300 guild, right? And if you're an Alliance guild, you'll get into that top 100. And if you're a Horde guild, you're not even close. You say 4 guys not getting paid made better classic servers than Blizzard will. They did get paid. And they will not make better classic servers than Blizzard will. They didn't make any classic servers. They just ripped code and put it up online. Alliance is a farm people place full of good half people. Well, people have that view, of course, and who knows whether it's true. The Alliance players tend to be much more, easygoing, and the Horde ones are the ones. Because Ian said that, didn't he? The people who are more likely to be attracted to PvP are more likely to play Horde, just because of the look, not so much abilities or anything like that, just the look. Which may be true, I don't know. Have a leper gnome allied race for Horde. Well, they could do that. That would be okay. I say it would be okay. It wouldn't be that okay because I'd have to team with them. Every world first next raid will be Alliance because the Horde people will end as an Alliance character. Yes, funny. Hilarious. No. Horde character in disguise. Picking on poor Jaina. I don't mind them picking on the gnome. I hope the gnome dies. I don't actually know anything about the new raid really, other than what I've just read up on it, because obviously I'm not experiencing it anymore. But I hope they kill the gnome. Obviously they can't kill Jaina. That would be outrageous. Now they mean yeah, it's still the same character, you're just putting a disguise on. A bit like when we did Allah in Tempest Keep. Okay, so the Activision stock prices started before, but it did start before BlizzCon. I've said that. It won't be a correlation to the sub count either. If the thing, right, try and bear this in mind. World of Warcraft is actually, as much as us as World of Warcraft players won't appreciate this, is actually a significant but a small proportion of their profits. In fact, their Candy Crush makes more money than World of Warcraft. Basically, the smart money in terms of the share prices basically what it's to do with is they're posting lower profits than they advertised. And most of it is related to Call of Duty, not World of Warcraft. That being said, If they have lost a load of subs from World of Warcraft, that would, of course, also hit expected profits. So that would be partly into the mix as well. But ultimately, the share prices has got zero to do with anything to do with the game as such. It's only to do with profit. Investors want profit. They don't care how good the game is. But yes, so it might have something to do with it. But the largest factor is likely to be something like Call of Duty, which generates way more money. So therefore, if that doesn't generate as much as they're expecting, then that would hit it. Your Die-Hard Alliance, it could not be more casual. Your PC is not even set up. That is what I call casual. You saw the Janers fight. Yeah. The last 3 months have been beta. Well, people keep saying that. BFA actually launches December the 11th. Wow. We will see. We'll see. Obviously, yes, they've improved some systems that should have been improved when it went live. So people will certainly take that view. But, and you know, there'll be another Warfront out by then as well. And Alliance get straight into it, don't they? Alliance get first crack at the Warfront. And they don't have to turn in any resources to do it either. It's just open. You're going to be playing the PTR, so the next time they do that, you unsub and not get tied up to mythic progression. Tech companies are suffering across the board at the moment. Well, yeah, numbers do seem to be. You can't believe they put all this into the game and didn't factor in expected profits. Well, they did. They just got it wrong. Ultimately. They've got it wrong. Now, why they've got it wrong is irrelevant. I say it's irrelevant. No, it's not irrelevant. It's we can't possibly know. I'm sure there'll be people involved in it who will all be going, well, I told you it wasn't going to be like this. It's a bit like with the financial crash, for example, that happened some years ago. I had a friend, now one bank that was hit very badly in this country was Royal Bank of Scotland, RBS. And the government had to bail it out, basically. And I had a friend who works there at the time, and he said that people basically knew this was going to happen because they were being very, very cavalier with their lending. You know, they were lending when they... And they were lending to people where they weren't... It wasn't even meeting their own criteria for lending. So they knew it was going to be, you know... It was going to go. And there's probably people like there, Activision Blizzard now, who knew that the profits that were being predicted were higher than they were realistically going to be. The Overwatch player base is also way down. Is it? Oh, I didn't know that. And the plus size, you're about to... Another Warfront. Yeah, but it's not just another Warfront. Like, it sounds like they're improving them each time as well, adding new features. We will see, but that's what it sounds like to me. So they may end up being very good, the Warfronts. What do I think of the new seasonal affix? What when you say seasonal, do you mean the one based on raid tiers? So at the moment we have Infested, and then we're going to be getting the Rise and Rush thing, whatever it's called, from Samdi in the next one. Yeah, we were talking about that last week when people had to finally explain to me exactly how it worked. It does sound very odd. I'm not excited about it, I have to say. I quite like the idea of that 10 affix being linked to the latest storyline, which does beg the question as to exactly what it is, as it involves Samdi intimately. But I'm not crazy about the details of it. But I'll wait to see exactly how it's going to work first. Would I say that the FPS genre needs to evolve? I think every genre needs to evolve. You know, because when a genre's quite old, you'll always struggle to get new people into it. It may still be very well supported by fans from days gone by, but it's harder to get new people into it without modern systems. Feels that COD games every year is something that people don't get excited about. I mean, maybe it's just familiarity breeds contempt. Say it's World of... I mean, look at World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft, when it first came out, the first few years, could do no wrong. It was the new darling. You know, it was the groundbreaker. Now, it's seen as the dinosaur. You know, people actively talk disparagingly about it. And it's just... I think just sometimes it's familiarity. Or people like to support the underdog, the indie project, whereas they don't like to you know, once something becomes the establishment, it's no longer fashionable to support it. So there's any number of reasons why a game could sort of lose its mojo as time goes on. It may be that they're not really innovating, but it may just be that that's just the way players are, and they're waiting for the next big thing to come along. What more can they do without changing it into an RPG? They can get a Connect system up and give you an actual rifle. Not a real one, but, you know, for actually using to play it. Increase the amount of actual interactivity. All sorts of things you can do with a shooter. Loads of things you can do. All this depressing WoW news, and you tune into Final Fantasy FanFest this past weekend, and people are so happy. Well, yeah, Final Fantasy, amongst its fans, does get a lot of praise. It's not my sort of thing, I have to say, Final Fantasy. It's not my sort of thing at all. But one thing that is undeniable is that it enjoys fairly universal support amongst its fan base. Which you could argue is an indicator that they listen to their fan base. Because I'm not a fan, but I know people who are fans of it, and that's the impression I get from them, that they feel, that the players feel listened to in a way that has been absent from World of Warcraft, if we're honest, not just recently, for a long time. I mean, I'm not getting me wrong, they still obviously produce a very good quality game in WoW, but as a player, I do not feel valued at all in the game. Not at all. Whereas in other games I do. Elder Scrolls Online I do. I don't play that casually. You know, there's so much engagement with the community in Elder Scrolls Online. And a lot of MMOs as well. And whereas World of Warcraft, you could argue they've recently started to engage, because now if you look on Battle.net, they do sometimes do like crossover projects with famous WoW YouTubers and streamers. You know, that's something they never used to do. So there's some of that. So you can argue they're doing something, but it's still not, you know, it still all feels very like they're trying to control everything and they're only promoting people. I mean, you don't expect to promote people that attack them, obviously. But they're not really doing anything. Like, there's some gaming systems where they do live Q&As, which are different from Blizzard's in two ways. One, it's every week. And two, they actually take questions live. They actually look at the comments and take questions live. And we don't get that. You miss the interaction of Ghostcrawler. Yeah, you see, I'm a Ret Paladin, so I don't always miss the interactions. But he was at least interactive. He was at least engaging, yes. Anyway. Wolfenstein had more cutscenes than actual gameplay. People like their cutscenes. The new Lost Ark MMORPG is quite good. The ARPG isometric game style. Well, I mean, different systems, of course. Some people will still quite like that. You still can't believe WoW has not copied the ESO. You don't have to copy. Like when Blizzard did its stuff best, it never copied from other games. It took features that other games had, then made them better. You know, like there's so many things that WoW could do with player housing that would make it better than any other game's player housing. They've got the resources to do it if they wanted to. Although it's probably harder now for them to argue for loosening the purse strings. You know, it's a bit like Ian Hazakostas was trying to argue that they should give more money to World of Warcraft to get more developers. He's probably going to have a hard sell on that now that he's just basically shat a load of subs out. Have they communicated with the player base in ESO about animation cancelling? Their thoughts on it? They probably have, but I don't watch all the Q&As. I just know they happen. I catch them every now and then. But you've got to bear in mind, I'm a casual in that. Most of what they talk about goes over my head because I don't really do all that content. But I do know that they take questions. I think they have given their thoughts on it, which have largely been... See, the thing is, I don't think it's even something that people are massively against. You know, I'm against it. But people sort of just use it. Player housing is not something you're interested in, but Blizzard are going to have to do it eventually because the majority seem to want it. The majority have wanted it for a very long time. Don't think that they'll do it just because people are asking for it. People have been asking for it. They used to even promise it'd be there. For the first few years of WoW, there was supposed to be player housing. And they kept promising it and promising it. And eventually they just decided, no, we're not doing it now. After several years of promising it. So, but there's so many things they could just do with it. It completely baffles me that they were. And I know it would need a team. It would need a separate team that doesn't exist at the moment. You couldn't just add it onto the to-do list. I totally get that. It would actually need a separate development team, which would need extra funding. But it would be amazing. Absolutely amazing. In fact, if you think about it, you know, if you look at the people that have developed like Islands and Warfronts, if they'd have just done player housing with that same budget instead, you know, I don't think people would have missed the Warfronts and the Islands. You've killed gods, but you're homeless. Well, we're squatters, really. We can soon find somewhere to rest, but we're effectively squatters, yeah. But yeah, it's so... because it's baffling to me that every MMO that I have right now, you have housing in it. So Black Desert Online, Lord of the Rings Online, Star Wars The Old Republic, and Elder Scrolls Online. Houses in all of them. World of Warcraft's the only bloody game I don't have an house. I can't understand it. The biggest budget of all. It's spectacularly baffling to me. Every day I keep having to question if I'm actually a bit of a dullard and I'm missing something really obvious. You really like the Star Wars The Old Republic housing things? Yeah, I quite like them as well. I'm not very good at designing though. I'm not a very good interior decorator. It looks like a bit of a mess. You know, for example, my bedroom has a speeder in it, like a speeder bike, and it's also got a load of. It's like a bedroom come workshop. It's got a load of shelves of tools and stuff like that. Why would you ever want a house? So you can surround it with the trophies of your exploits. And then show people around and people go, ooh, fancy. It's just a way of customizing. People like to customize characters. And a role-playing game is ultimately people able to create a digital copy of a character and develop that character. And the thing is, the rewards in World of Warcraft are too transient. You know, a year ago, I was a Mythic Raider. Now, I am a casual scrub. So it's all gone. All that's gone. Whereas all my cool transmogs, I've still got those. Allow racers to freely pick their faction, add player housing, cross-faction PvE content, world quests across the whole of Azeroth. The thing is, there'd need to be a reason for world quests across Azeroth. Add cosmetic rewards to achievements. They should certainly do that. I mean, these are all things I've suggested as well. I'm not sure about the world quests across the whole of Azeroth. Like, I don't even... like, what would you do as a reason for doing it? Because it would take some effort to do that. Sounds like a waste of resources. No, it's not a waste of resources. There are people who would play the game specifically for that content alone. It is known because there are people who do that in other games. There are people who play games specifically just to do that. To basically play dress up, right? Because that's a big part of role-playing games. It would not be a waste of resources. It would make money. Gnome dancing girls in your house. Well, what you have in your housing is entirely up to you. As long as I don't have to put up with that nonsense. I mean, I could ban all gnomes. That'd be a good feature they could bring in. Because like I say, they shouldn't just copy a system. They should develop their own system, make it better. So you could, for example, have a guild house, but with a filter on it that didn't allow gnomes. So then everyone from your guild could come into it. Or maybe you have a gnome-free room where you go into this room and it's all sophisticated and, you know, nice, you know, armchairs and fireplace, stuff like that. But it doesn't allow gnomes in. So if you're a gnome player in that guild, you're not allowed in that room. It doesn't let you. That'd be great. That'd be fantastic. It could work like in Dalaran when you try to go to the opposite faction's little area to get kicked out and stunned. That'd be fantastic. You can put your 500 fish achievement trophy in the house. Indeed. Better than that. Like the idea I keep coming up with. Imagine this. So you could have for every... in a guild house, for example, for every raid that you do, you could have a trophy attached to that raid on the guild house with a plaque that has your world ranking on it. That wouldn't be that difficult to do if the world ranking's in the game files. So you get your world ranking and you get a special... So that guild house then, anyone coming in like years later can go back, oh, I see you got world 167 in Uldir. You know? So the guild itself could have a lot of history within its guild house. And each individual's player's house has the history of that individual character. Be amazing. Blizzard, you say they may well buy housing tech from Carbine's Wildstar. I don't believe that. Well, first of all, I don't think they would. You know, if they were to do it, they'd do it themselves. They have an active opposition to player housing. I don't know why, but they are actively opposed to it. They don't even sound like they're leaning towards it, or even considering it at all. I just don't. I'll keep talking about it, but they'll never put it in. You literally only played ESO to work on your houses. Yeah, well, there's so much you could do in the ESO house as well. It's such a good system. I mean, I just have loads of houses. Every now and then, I use my crowns for the online store to buy a house. I've got a palace. I've got the palace in the desert one. I've got quite a lot of nice ones, actually. One of them is the like that house near the volcano. And I have a throne on the beach. All your archaeology finds, raid kill trophies, art, gardens. There are so many possibilities. Absolutely so many possibilities. It's endless what you could literally do with it. And again, you could have obviously different types of house. You could have a fairly basic hovel. You know, you could have a grand one, like a townhouse, a mansion, a palace. There's no end to it. It's... Hi, Kevin. Took them 10 years to come to the senses on mogging fist weapons. Yeah, I know. It's when it comes to cosmetic reward. I mean, I talked about this recently, didn't I? When it comes to cosmetic rewards, they really do seem to be blind to the benefits of it. What do I think about the auction house crisis? Auction house crisis? What have I missed now? What auction house crisis? Imagine the housing from Star Wars Galaxies. Ah, see, I didn't play Star Wars Galaxies. So, WoW was my first MMO. I've only heard people speak fondly of it. I've never actually experienced it. What's this auction house crisis? What have I missed? Item stat. Oh, no. That's not a crisis. That was... Right, that's something they put in to stop people taking the piss. It's not a permanent feature. They have got a better system coming. Once the better system comes into place, they're removing that. But it's not a problem. You could find my house and raid it with gnomes. No, because that's not how it works. Player housing, you can decide who has permission to come into your house. Right? I'll ban all gnomes. Hang on a minute. Auction houses allow people to sell common stuff like potions by misleading. 300k each, etc. Shouldn't people pay attention to that, though? See you later, Dimitri. Shouldn't people pay attention? I think people should pay attention to how much they're spending, to be fair. I don't think that's a crisis. Yeah, the reason why, exactly, buffoons, it is basically to stop people listing items in stacks of one when there is no sensible reason to do so. They said they're introducing a system that should take that over. In the meantime, it's actually a perfectly good system. So that's okay. And so actually one thing I've forgotten that I wanted to mention, actually, seeing as I'm not going to do a separate video on this, and how appalled I am. And I can't believe there aren't more people irate about this. I praised Blizzard wholeheartedly last week. And it's like, as soon as I did, they had to go and like spoil the moment. The Corgi goggles with the anniversary. Amazing. It's like the best thing ever. And then they've gone and nerfed them. I mean, what sort of fun police are they that nerfs the Corgi goggles because they're too overpowered? Am I going to play Star Citizen? I don't even know what that is, so I strongly suspect the answer is no. The Corgi goggles are the best thing. I actually tweeted this. I said they're the best thing ever to be introduced to any game in the history of gaming. And then they nerfed it. I said nice things to them, and then they nerfed it. Why? What harm is possibly being achieved by turning the world into corgis? My only disappointment with the corgi goggles, although it makes perfect sense, is that I don't get turned into a corgi as well. I mean, it makes sense. I understand why. How did they nerf them? Because you used to be able to have them on all the time. But now it's got a 30-minute cooldown with a 10-minute duration. So you can only have them active for a third of the time. They did. They fun. It's the classic fun detected must nerf. You say next year the Corgi goggles will be turned nerfed again. It'll actually turn everyone to gnomes. They've already done that. I have goggles that turn... Do you know, it's even more disturbing than that. I have goggles that turn people into S&M gnomes. That was in the game years ago. I've got those. Hang on, I'm going to log into the game. I'll show you. That's a thing. That is already a thing. They're not naked. They're just wearing, like, bondage gear. But it is a disturbing sight. See, the best thing about the Corgi models, turn everyone to a Corgi, is I didn't have to put up with any trolls or Tauren or anything. All of a sudden, Orgrimmar was full of beautiful racers. It was so cute. Sylvanas was dragging her arse across the floor in the tent, the War Chief's tent. It's amazing. Right, need to log in. But I am not looking forward to a whole zone full of... Even though the mechanical gnomes are not the ones I have an issue with, the fact it will be full of gnome NPCs is not... I'm just glad. This is actually one of the few times where I'm going to be glad to be Horde. Because I'll at least get my quests off goblins, I assume. Hopefully, that zone will not be as... Oh, hello. As important a zone as Nazjatar. I'm hoping that'll be the main one. Right, now I need to... I guess it's a toy now. Oh, no, it's not. Oh, crap. That means it might be in my bank. Hang on. I'm going to have to... But they're the best thing in any game. It's not just this game. They're the best thing in any game. Right, I have got a search... It's not a toy, apparently, this thing I'm looking for. So I'm going to have to find it. It's probably in the bank. If it's in the bank, it could take a while. I'll have to do a search for it. Honestly, back when Greg Street was in the team, we had someone who dared to be the punching bag. Most of the time, did give some... He did give insight. I would totally agree. He was very open about discussing things. At the same time, I was a Ret Paladin. And he said very mean things about Ret Paladins. If I'm not raiding, I still prefer Alliance. Why am I still Horde? Because it's still because the content I am doing, I still don't want to do in a pug, and the people I know are Horde. So that's why I'm Horde. It wasn't worth spending the money to go back to Alliance when I don't know anyone. Because everyone's Horde.
King's honor, friend.
Oh no, it's not working. What's going on? Oh, here we go. I found them. Found them. Come on. Something's been really slow in my game for some reason. Now, I hesitate. Oh, God, I've lost them. Hang on a minute. Something's up with my mouse recently. Oh no! It doesn't work on the Horde. It doesn't turn everyone into gnomes. It turns everyone into orcs. What have I done? It just turns everyone into orcs. What the hell is this? I thought it was just... to be honest, I mean, obviously when I had them, I was Alliance. I just assumed that it just made you in, like, Alliance. But no, it's obviously just gnomes for the Alliance. This bloody mouse. And Horde otherwise. So, anyway. We'll try and find it anyway. But... Well, at least it means I can't make everyone look like gnomes now. I suppose that's a good thing. And I don't think I have the same item on... there it is. Oh, God. Seriously, this mouse. So it's basically just turns everyone into... I mean, I suppose they're scantily clad orcs, but, you know, they're still orcs. Doesn't really make any difference, does it? Whereas if you do that on Alliance, they all turn into, like, gnomes in S&M gear. Wow. Anyway. The Corgis are as bad as having an option to hide other players' characters. No, as good. As good as an option. They're awesome. The Corgi goggles are like the best thing ever. I spent When I got those goggles, I spent a good hour just travelling around looking at all the awesome things I could find, including... Where was it? How can I find this? There was a spectre. Oh, here we go. Look, a corgi copter. It's a corgi copter. Found someone who was in the head of Myrmidon. I just went around. I spent an hour just looking at corgis in places where corgis should not be. And I couldn't, I can't even be asked to go on and spend an hour doing world quests these days, or even half that time. But I spent an hour going around looking at all the different, corgis. It was like being at Crufts, only it's not boring. So, corgicopter. They should make that a thing. So yeah, it's better than world quests. Do druid shapeshift forms still look like what they should do? Are they dogs too? That is a good point. I'm not sure. I don't remember seeing a druid in shapeshift form whilst I had the goggles on. So I think probably the druids do turn, but I can't be certain. Obviously hunter pets don't. They stay as their normal pets. That is actually a good question. I don't know. Corgi Khadgar. Oh, I didn't look at anything on the Alliance. Corgi Khadgar. There'd be Corgi Anduin as well. Corgi Anduin. Oh, I need to look at Corgi Anduin. I'll tell you what is. You can see a flying dog. Like in Orgrimmar, where you've got your wyvern riders. They're corgis too. The NPCs are corgis. So you've got these corgis riding the wyverns going around Orgrimmar. I tried to get a decent screenshot of it. I couldn't manage it. But they looked brilliant. I was so happy when they brought that out. And I was so disappointed when they nerfed it. Not because they nerfed it. That was disappointment, I suppose. It was because... Why? Why would you do that? It's like giving an ice cream to a young child, and then when it's about to take a lick, taking it off and say, sorry, no, that's not for you. Why would you do that? What sort of heartless creature would do that? So now if I want to spend, some time looking at corgis, I've got 10 minutes. Now when I use my goggles, I'm stressed. I'm not relaxed about it because I know I've only got 10 minutes to do it. And then, I've got to wait around for 20 minutes. It's cruel. There's no need for it. It serves no purpose. They're just fun sponges. It's official. They're just mean. They're Grinches. Anduin is great as a corgi sitting on his throne. I need to see it. I need to see. Someone's bound to have taken a picture of that, haven't they? Let's have a look. Corgi Anduin. Let's see what comes up. I want to have a look at this. Oh, yeah. Anduin Ring, King of Stormwind. Oh, it looks amazing. Ah. Oh, yes, yes, yes. I need to do like a montage of all these things. Oh, I like this. Oh, no, stop that. Gordon Bennett, this bloody mouse. I need to put the new one in. I've got a new mouse somewhere. I just don't want to use it because it's not the same model as this one. But this one is clearly on the blink. Keeps thinking I press the right mouse button when I press the left mouse button. Yes. It is an improvement, isn't it? It's a shame they haven't still got the armour on. That would be even better if they changed all the armour skins in the game so that it fit corgis and so that they could still have their equipment. That would be even better. Darksiders 3. I don't know what that is either. I know what almost nothing is. If I learn about games at all that I don't play, it's generally, at least so that I know when the release dates are, so that I can say to my students, if anyone is off on this day, I shall be hugely suspicious. In fact, I remember one time I had a couple of students took the day off so that they could play a World of Warcraft expansion. So they weren't getting away with that. If I couldn't have a day off to do that, they couldn't. Well, they did. But I gave them hell when they came back. Anyway. I'm still waiting for more class stuff to appear. I saw some stuff go up on the PTR because what have we got left now? 3 weeks, is it? It is 3 weeks, isn't it? 3 weeks today before the patch comes out. And then there'll be very little immediately after that because obviously it'll be coming up to Christmas then. Where was it? I haven't actually checked recently. Have they added anything more? Oh yeah, that's a thing. They've increased the timer on Underrot and Tol de Gore now. We end up with a ridiculous number of Tol de Gore keys, so that might be quite useful. Opinion on Lost Ark. Lost Ark as in... I don't think you mean Raiders of the Lost Ark, do you? Any Ret Cleave changes? All I know about Ret Cleave is that Divine Judgment should be getting a buff. Which could... I mean, it's not a directly cleavy talent, but it potentially allows you to use Divine Storm on 2 targets and it be a DPS increase. But obviously that DPS increase is on your primary target. What do you mean? You have to... Upcoming isometric MMORPG. Oh dear. No, I don't know anything about it, I'm afraid. Isometric. Oh, alright, let me have a quick look here. Oh, okay. No, I've not seen this. I now know what you mean by isometric. I think you mean isotonic. Is it an MMO? It says it's an MMO. What's its thing? What's its like? Oh, is it one of these Asian conversion MMOs? It looks very much like it. Like my only experience of those is like Black Desert Online, which was really, really good. Apart from the fact, as I say, when you got to a certain level, it forced PvP onto you. Which, if it hadn't have done that, I would quite like that game. In fact, I'd like it quite a lot. But unfortunately, they did that. I mean, I keep wanting to go back and play it again, maybe start again. But the problem is, ultimately, I know that I'll get into it and I want to play it and I'll get close to that level and it'll be like, there's no point because I do not want to do the forced PvP. It's not even like you'd have a chance anyway. You just get your head kicked in all the time. And it doesn't matter. I know they put mechanics in to try and dissuade people from constantly farming you, but it doesn't stop. There's nothing to dissuade someone coming along and killing you once and going off, and then someone else coming along and killing you. From your point of view, the victim, you're still having people killing you 24/7. So you don't actually get to really play the game. And even if it only happened every now and then, it would still be... It still annoys me. It's something that annoyed me about PvP servers in WoW. You know, the fact that I had to go into one to raid. Because even though I was almost never inconvenienced by it. The fact that I occasionally have it. You say that never happens, but, well, it did happen. No one farms you like that. But you have one person come up and kill you, and then another person come up and kill you, and then another person, because that happened. You will give them all your money on Xbox. I don't know that it was worth spending a ridiculous amount of money on it, but it was a very nice game. There were some very nice features in it. Even the combat, once you got used to it, was good. But what I most liked was actually just doing coach rides and trading, basically. A bad unlucky day. Yes, it was the unlucky day that I got to level whatever it was. I can't remember now. But it was quite nice. I mean, because I have to think like next summer I might do Baldur's Gate. I haven't played Baldur's Gate for a few years. I might do Baldur's Gate next. I might have in my next summer game. I might even be persuaded this Christmas. Someone is semi-persuading me to finally watch Game of Thrones. I've never actually seen or read Game of Thrones. They may be potentially persuading me to get the box set and watch that this Christmas, or at least watch as much as I can at Christmas. But I don't know. I actually had to get my television fixed, actually. That's not working downstairs. So it's either do it, or I could do it while I'm painting, I suppose. Yeah, I don't know. It's never really appealed, but I am being persuaded. So, you never know. I don't know whether to read it first and then watch it, or... Because once you've watched it, there's no point in reading it, usually, I find. With these sorts of things. What they should really do, though, is, I mean, what I would quite like to see, you know, you've got, like, obviously, like Game of Thrones, you've got, there's a Lord of the Rings series being done with Amazon. Then, I'd quite like to see them do a Warcraft series like that, telling the old stories. But it wouldn't have to be live action. There's no need for it to be live action. They could easily just do it as an animation. I would quite like that. You know, maybe they could do it like they did with, you know, Star Wars Rebels, Clone Wars, that sort of thing. Game of Thrones is worth reading because it changes whole things from the books because of the time constraints. You see, that's my issue, really. The problem is, because the books are usually have a more complete story, if you read the books, then watch it, often it can get frustrating watching it. Whereas sometimes if you watch it first and then read the books can add to it. I don't know. Oh, first couple of Thrones books decent, then they go downhill. Oh dear. Okay, oh dear. I mean, there'd be no argument at all, as I say, if Warcraft just did their own bloody series, I'd watch that instead. And I don't know when this Lord of the Rings one is supposed to be coming out, either. In fact, I haven't heard any updates on it for a while. If I watch Game of Thrones, set aside a lot of time. I don't have to set aside any time. I can just watch it now and then. You watched 5 seasons in one weekend? I thought the seasons were quite long. Are they not? I thought Americans went mental with television series and made like hundreds of them. Watch it then read. Alright, I'll do that then. Marvel are doing a one-off Loki TV with Tom Hiddleston. I don't know. Not hugely keen on the Loki character, I have to say. If it's a one-off, isn't that just like a TV movie, like a cheap, low-budget movie? One of those series that if you start, you won't want to stop until you end it. No, I don't know. I'm pretty fine. Like literally, if I want to watch a DVD right now, I have 3 options. One, I can't watch it downstairs. In theory, I could, but my television's bust. So I can't actually watch it reclining in a nice comfy armchair. So I could watch it on this computer here, but that would be pointless. Or I could sit at my painting station and I can watch it because I have a mini DVD player, Blu-ray player, so that I can watch things while I paint, because painting is mind-numbingly boring for me. Oh yeah, the Witcher series. I'd forgotten that was a thing. Yes. This is it. You see, I don't watch television anymore. I haven't for many years. So, I mean, I'm sure there are some television series that are probably quite good that I'm missing out on. But, you know. Game of Thrones is fantasy, but it's not really high fantasy. Well, okay. I mean, there are dragons in it, but I take it what you mean is there are no, like, sorcerers or stuff. Oh, dear. It doesn't really matter. What matters is, as I say, is it engaging enough? And we shall see whether it is or not. Maybe. I might as well. I mean, I've not got much else going on at Christmas anyway. Apart from I'm supposed to be doing painting. But then I was supposed to be doing painting for the last... I haven't done any painting for 3 weeks. I need to get on with that as well. Depends what you mean by high fantasy. Like, for me, high fantasy usually means sorcery. You know, whereas just normal fantasy is maybe in a fantasy setting, a fantasy world with different creatures and things like that, but not the sorcery, as if it's normal people living in a world with different creatures and stuff like that. But I don't know that there's a definite definition. Oh, there is magic in it, is there? Okay. I don't know. I know very little about it. Other than it's supposed to be quite violent. So maybe it'll be alright. Oh, a bit of necromancy. Oh, good. I like a bit of necromancy. One of your favourite TV shows, Peaky Blinders. Yes, see, I've heard of an awful lot of these things without actually having seen any of them. The only television I have seen from like the last 15 years is stuff that I'll have watched on DVD later on. So usually series that I know I'm going to enjoy, like Doctor Who, even though that's lessened of late. Game of Thrones, Middle Ages with a hinting undertone of magic, which becomes more prevalent as the series goes on, I see. Well, I used to, when I was young, I used to watch lots of telly as well, because I would have like television, computer, and that was it. So, yeah. But now, no. If you can get past all the incest, is that incense or incest? He hadn't told me. No one told me about that. Oh dear. Oh, it's one of those shows, is it? Well, at least there are no gnomes. I was promised there were no gnomes. So it should be fine. Not that I have an issue with gnomes in any other game setting apart from World of Warcraft. It's quite spectacular. Oh, they bring people back from the dead as well. What do you mean there's one gnome? You're not referring to the dwarf, are you? That's not a gnome. There's a difference. Gnomes squeak and are annoying. Peter? Who the hell's Peter? Are you kidding me? Is there an actual gnome in it? Anyway, I feel we've moved off from the World of Warcraft type theme. Yes, dwarf would be fine. They're not anything like gnomes at all. That would be most unfair. Did we all have a look at the Q&A, by the way, that they did, the post-BlizzCon Q&A, where the questions that didn't get to be asked got answered? Just trying to bring it back onto World of Warcraft. Where they said, for example, which I wasn't happy about, where they referred to the Defias as villains when they weren't villains at all. They were poor, cheated people who just simply... Oh yeah, Titan Forge. Well, yeah. I mean, the thing that annoyed me about the answer to that is not... I mean, I know Titan Forge is going nowhere. It does what they want it to do. But the explanation they gave was valid for Warforging, but not for Titan Forging. It's a totally different thing with Titan Forging. The PTR keeps crashing on you. Right. I know what this may be, because it happened with me. I think what I had to do to get it to work was it's something to do with the DirectX version. So in the options, whatever it's on, change it to the other one or something. That fixed it for me. Because I had exactly the same problem. It may be a different reason, but that was what the issue was for me. The wrong DirectX version in the ticky boxes. Top priority should always be class design. It should always be class design. But the thing is, I mean, you can argue it is, because it's not like any people ever do anything other than class design. You have class designers, and that's all they do. And you have other people who have nothing to do with class design, and they do their thing. So it's not that they aren't prioritizing class design. It's that it's just to do with philosophy, you know. I just think their attitude towards class design is fundamentally wrong. Not that it's terrible. I'm not saying it's absolutely atrocious. I've seen class design be worse in other games. You felt bad for the device. It is. You say they were murdering and thieving from innocence. Oh, no. I'm not sure that was really true. They were thieving. But how innocent were these people really when they were withholding their money? It was all a plot by Onyxia anyway. But I wouldn't describe them as villains. I thought that was most unfair. If they just made Forge and give extra sockets and double tertiary... Well, this is exactly it. See, with their explanation works for Warforging, because their explanation is, we want you to be able to keep doing your raid with a chance of an upgrade. So if items could either Warforge an extra 5 item levels, or socket, or potentially Warforge and socket if you're lucky, That would work. That would solve the problem. Because that's how it used to work. And it did work as well. I mean, I remember in Siege of Orgrimmar, and remember, that lasted like a year or so, didn't it? And at the end of it, when Warlords of Draenor was about to come out, I still didn't have the Warforged version of the belt from Iron Juggernaut, whatever it's. Hold on, was that it? The Goblin Metal Scorpion thing, boss. I still didn't have the Warforged belt from that. I had Warforged and everything else, but not that. And that was after a year. And that was before sockets were random as well, I think. So, the farmers and villagers were innocent. Maybe. But they were still wronged first. You don't believe they have class designers. They do have class designers. But to be fair to those class designers, people senior to them keep changing the goalposts. They keep changing their, what they're going to do with classes, which then fundamentally prevents them from doing any long-term planning because things keep changing. You don't like the looks of the Zandalari and the Magor Orcs? They're not too... Well, Magor Orcs... Well, they are. I mean, the whole point with Magor Orcs is they're orcs that are brown. But they've also got, the tattoos thing going on as well, haven't they, to be fair? But no, in terms of, is it worth you levelling up a character with them? No. Of course not. That's just the heritage armour. The levelling up, the reward for that is the heritage armour. Otherwise, you can just do a race change. You think the Zandalari trolls are the best race visual in the game? Oh, I don't know. They are still trolls at the end of the day. You like the night? The Nightfallen just look pissed off to me. Every expression it's like someone, they have a face that makes it look like someone very close by to them has produced the foulest fart you've ever encountered in your life. Like true nastiness. There's no pleasant faces on them. The male ones, way, way worse. No ambition with class design. So little spell interaction these days. That is possibly a fair point. It could be argued that not everyone, of course, but as a lot of us zoom out from our characters, don't get to see a lot of it either. In fact, we could probably be thankful they ever even look at new animations, because the issue with the Magor Orcs is really you don't see them any storyline behind them. Do you miss something? Well, yeah. I don't see how it's relevant to BFA, I have to say, at the moment. But, they're supposed to... Well, I don't know, because it's really weird, because they come from the alternate Draenor as well. I thought when we heard about Magor Orcs, they'd come from our Draenor, which would have made, to me, more sense. But they've come from alternate Draenor. But they're nonetheless supposed to be the orcs that didn't accept the blood of Manaroth. But that's why it doesn't make much sense for them to be the alternate orcs for me. Because none of those orcs accepted it. Apart from Gul'dan. Whereas in our universe, some orcs did and some orcs didn't. You don't understand why people go apeshit just because Blizzard added a bunch of reskinned races. I don't think they are. I just think... if they'd have just done them as sub-races, then I think everyone would have been delighted. It's the fact they did them as completely separate races just to get more money and to get us levelling for the heritage armour. But the people, I think, are still generally quite positive about them. And obviously you're going to have your favourites and the ones that you're not that bothered about at all. Like most of the Horde ones, I'm not that bothered. In fact, potentially exclusively the Horde ones, I'm not that bothered about at all. The Zandalari trolls are the best out of the allied races, or at least when they come out. Whereas on the Alliance side, you know, you've got the Void Elves, which are very nice, and the Kulturan humans look good as well. The Legion allied races are still the best. You've got 3 out of 4 of them to 110. Oh my god. Oh yeah, the Dark Irons look quite good as well. I had a really good transmog ready for the Dark Iron Dwarf because I worked it out on the alpha. Unfortunately, I'm now Horde, so I'm not going to be making a Dark Iron Dwarf. I was absolutely definitely going to have a Dark Iron Dwarf. I worked out a brilliant transmog for it and everything. And then, yeah, not Alliance anymore. People just want straight back talks. Yeah, we can have that with normals. I mean, I agree. You know, I much prefer the upright orcs. Instead of making new races, they should have made a new class. No. Too many classes. Too many classes. There's too many. You miss passives and abilities interacting with each other. Like Selfless Healer, Sacred Shield. Well, you can argue what we miss is just different abilities interacting with each other, making for a more complex gameplay. But that is something which they are addressing. I know that at least. That has been acknowledged as a mistake. Now, quite how quickly and to what extent it will be changed, I do not know. But I do know that that is being addressed. You like the Kulturus humans and the Void Elf. Yeah, but they are excellent. Those two, but your Horde. They are quite excellent. For some people, if you give them golden bars, they will bitch out why it's so heavy. But they are heavy, to be fair. They could just give you the cash in the form of a check. Don't have to give you gold bars. And if you have gold bars, not only have you got to lug them about, you've got to find some. You've got to go and sell them. It's right hassle. Paper, please. The Chinese invented paper currency long time ago, specifically to solve this problem. Leave the gold bars in the bank. Never enough classes. There are, especially when their attitude to specs is that each one is its own class. When they treat specs, and this is not me inferring anymore, Ian Hazakostas actually said it himself. When they actually treat them, they treat it like having 36 different classes. At that point, there are too many. It should have been Stormhammer Dwarfs instead of Dark Iron. Huh? Stormhammer? No, Dark Iron Dwarfs makes much more sense. Because of Moira. Moira is like the proactive dwarf. She has been for some years. They've been building her up for some years. So it makes absolutely a load of sense. And also the fact, so she is now the link between, because officially storyline-wise, Wildhammer is, I thought that's what you might have meant. Officially, the Dark Eyes, they weren't very happy with us because we went over to their pad, right? And we broke all their golems. We started a bar fight. I killed their gnome bartender, and then we killed their emperor. So we weren't exactly their favourite people. So they've come around now. It's all forgiven, forgot. Save $10 on Battle for Azeroth throughout November the 26th. Looking at the next WoW forum. WoW is dead. Yeah. I mean, it's not. People have been proclaiming that for many years, of course. Demo locks could tank for a little while. Well, I think demo locks should be tanks. I think they should make it a tanking class. You can have a tanking pet class. I mean, they tanked Illidan for a bit when he was in Demon Phase. And Warlocks and Mages both did a bit of tanking duty on... what was it called now? The one before Gruul, that band of ogres before Gruul's lair. Yeah, I can't remember which one, but Mages did some tanking duty as well, yeah, in TBC. Spell steal the shield. I completely, I don't know. Like, I was a paladin. It was just my problem to try and heal up the warrior who insisted on staying in the whirlwinding other main boss. And then moaned when they took shitloads of damage. WoW is down as in losing long-time customers and not getting new ones. Yeah, but when you say a game's dying, what you really mean is its days are numbered. And I don't mean it will end at some point, because everything ends at some point. You know, I don't think it means just a decline. It means it's experiencing a fatal decline. And we don't know that. I don't remember a lot of details about that particular fight because we didn't spend very long on it. I remember a lot more about Gruul, because that was a bit more vicious when it first came out. Trying to aim yourself away from everyone else so you didn't kill each other with shatter. That was fairly brutal. I mean, that's the thing as well. You know, when you think about the shatter mechanic on Gruul, which they also had the shatter mechanic on Gruul in Blackrock Foundry, and yet that wasn't nearly as dangerous. In the Blackrock Foundry version, not nearly as dangerous as the Gruul's Lair version. You know, the level of instant death stuff, which, you know, sometimes is a little unfair, but at the same time, there's not as much of it as there used to be, I don't think. Your guild had Locks tanking the Water Striders. Really? Because I did that when I was doing it on, when we did Alt Raids, I did that on my mage, my Frost Mage. Because you could slow them down with the Frost Bolts. So you had Warlocks tanking them. I just kited it with my mage. But yeah, I didn't play a war. I played a mage in TBC just as an alt. So I did. So I've done a fair bit of Karazhan on my mage, and I did. You know, Serpent Shrine Cavern. We used to do like alt raids later on, of course. They counted them with Curse of Weakness. Okay, did that slow? Don't remember very much. When did I first play it? I mean, I technically first played a Warlock in Vanilla, but I didn't really level it up very high. I can't remember if I played one in TBC. Didn't play one in Wrath. Oh, no, I did play one in Wrath. When I came back to play casually, yeah, I made an Orc Warlock. Yes, that's when I learnt the joy of in an AoE situation, just spamming the shit out of Seed of Corruption. It was actually quite a nice experience sometimes as well, playing, particularly after I'd been playing Ret for a bit, actually playing a ranged character in a raid that I was familiar with. It was a very interesting experience. Mages have been, well, mages are always excellent, aren't they? They were excellent in Vanilla, and that's the thing, in Vanilla and TBC, they were not only very good, but very easy to play, quite frankly. I mean, Vanilla, you could play a Frost Mage if you wanted, and you could just spam the shit out of Frostbolt, and you would do fine. Do I think there's a talent tree overhaul on the horizon, given that they haven't given us anything new for 2 expansions in a row? But they have, because they've given us the artifacts system. And even though Ian Hazacostas has said, in fact, he said it in that Q&A just recently, and he said, oh, but, you know, that's not supposed to be like a talent system. It bloody well is. So, no, I don't see them. I'm not saying they definitely won't overhaul it, but I've not seen them show any signs that they are thinking about it, because it's not that long ago that they defended the talent system. I think they, despite what they're saying, they do view the artifact system as an extension of a talent system. You're very excited for Classic. You want to make a Paladin and a Hunter because you never played them back then. Well, ironically, those would be the two things I would make first. And I will level both, because I'll have 2 accounts, you see. Well, I'll technically have 3, but one of them will have to be on NA for them, so that's no good. So I'll have 2 accounts, and I can level 2 characters at once. So I've tried this out on the demo, actually. It worked quite well. You have to get used to it. But basically, put my Paladin on follow, DPS with the Hunter, and use my Paladin just to keep blessings on. Which, unfortunately, at low level, has to be every 5 minutes. But the problem with the Hunter, of course, is making sure, first of all, you've got to give a certain amount of your infantry to your ammo. And secondly, you've got to keep plenty of cheese and fish in your bag for your pet. Should Blizzard give each class unique class buffs like the old Power Infusion Priest used to give one out to one person? And should buffs go back to groups, not raid-wide? I don't believe they should go back to groups, no. The problem is that when you have a powerful aura buff, you will need multiple of that class. So it shouldn't go back to party-wide. It's also very dodgy to try and give everyone a unique class buff, because some will inevitably be better than others. That being said, the current system is not good too, because now we've got a system where some classes do get buffs that you really need. So basically, at the moment, you cannot be without a Demon Hunter. Can't do it. You will not. If you want to do any competitive raiding, you will have a Demon Hunter. You may also, if you've got a lot of physical damage dealers in your raid, also consider a monk of equal value. But realistically, there's something you can do about that. You remember the Blizzard farms back in the day? You'd kill the Murlocs. Blizzard? What? Artifacts don't count. You may think that they don't. But nonetheless, that's what they have now. That's what they have to supplement talents. Whether we think that's good enough or not. In general, WoW needs an overhaul. Well, it needs a new game, really. But I don't think it's going to get one. And I think if they did do one, there is zero way they would bring it out with the PC in mind. That's not to say that they wouldn't bring a PC version out, but I am certain there is no way that they would bring out another MMO with the PC in mind. It would be with console in mind, and they'll just do an adaptation for the PC, which, I mean, this is one of the areas where I would criticise Elder Scrolls Online, because there's things they could have done to make it work better on a PC, like user interface wise, but they give it exactly the same user interface as the console, which was disappointing. There's a Pathfinder Kingmaker on Steam. It's a Baldur's Gate offspring with more modern rule set. It's not Baldur's Gate though, is it? I suppose I could look at it. But you got to remember, like, Icewind Dale was like Baldur's Gate like, but I didn't like Icewind Dale. Wasn't a fan of that. Same with totems for shamans. That was appalling, that. You know, because, I mean, one thing you used to be able to do then as well, which you can't now, is you could swap classes around, like characters around in combat. So you'd have your massive DPS group. You'd swap a shaman in to give them Wind Fury. When that faded, get them out, get the next shaman in, give them Wind Fury and stuff like that. It was a terrible system. Absolutely dreadful system. Baldur's Gate was absolutely amazing. Actually, someone was telling me something last week. Someone at work was saying that they had a CD, a game, a very old game, that hasn't worked on the last few versions of Windows, but it works on Windows 10. So I have the sort of latest version of Baldur's Gate, the one that was done that you can get for digital download. But there's a bug in. There's a few bugs in actually. There's one big bug. It basically broke my game, so I'd have to start it again anyway. But I have my discs still. I might just see, because for all the bad things I said about Windows 10, I'm just going to see if it might work on Windows 10, because I still have it, including like the special edition with all the bonuses on it. You don't mind console games as long as they come out on PC as well. However, usually that means the gameplay on the PC suffers. Yeah, well, that's the thing. It does suffer. That's the problem. But I do not think that they will produce. I don't think they'll produce it just for PC. I don't think there's any way they would do that, because you will make way more money bringing it out for console. And then, of course, you might as well bring it out for PC as well. But then that's another thing, is they'll think, is it really worth developing a totally separate interface for the PC players? They'll probably argue no. Have I heard about Pillars of Eternity, Tyranny, etc.? I don't think I have. Neverwinter Night 2 was your favourite? I played Neverwinter's Night 2. It was alright. But still, nothing's ever been able to make me enjoy it as much as Baldur's Gate. Should work using compatibility mode when installing. So I'll give it a go anyway. Do people even play on console with so few buttons to press? Well, they do. Obviously, you couldn't play World of Warcraft as it is now. But if they were to develop a completely new Warcraft-based MMO, you would develop it with a more modern system. Action combat system for a start off. No tab targeting. You might have smart targeting, but as that... But yeah, people do. People manage, to be fair. They cope with it. But I don't get on with the controllers. It hurts. Basically, when I play using a game controller for too long, it does my thumbs in. Planescape Torment, that is going back a long time. That's right back to the days of the likes of Doom and Descent, in terms of PC games. Descent being the first game for which I bought myself one of the flight joysticks, where you could have the coolie hat on top so you could use the joystick to maneuver the craft, and then your coolie hat to maneuver like viewpoints and stuff like that. But that's going back a ridiculously long time now. Neverwinter Nights was good, but it just never really fit up to me. But Icewind Dale I really didn't get on with at all. Wasn't that keen on it at all. I mean, maybe they could make a single-player Warcraft-type role-playing game. I do think they never do that. I mean, the thing, I suppose, with Warcraft is it's always been, on a certain scale, hasn't it? So maybe they wouldn't. But it'd be interesting. I'd quite like a Warcraft-themed single RPG game. I haven't played a single-player RPG for so many years. Because I've not played Witcher 3, even though people sort of said it's good. It's like... It's not that I sort of didn't want to try it, just it's too many games I've got on at the moment anyway. If they made console controllers have more buttons, it needs to be realistic though, doesn't it? You need to be able to manage them. I'm not sure. I just don't like controllers. I was never even a fan of joysticks, even when I had joystick games when I was young and growing up. I always preferred, if I could, to use keybinds if possible. There needs to be better D&D MMORPG beside. See, Dungeons and Dragons Online, I did not like at all. I tried it years ago, and I played it for an hour, and I just got so sick of it. I couldn't even go beyond an hour. Oh, excuse me. I ever played MechWarrior? I don't know. If it's a very old game, I may have forgotten. I can't remember. I don't specifically remember playing MechWarrior. Ah, you say the Kempston joystick. What was the joystick I had for my Atari? Which had this ridiculously rapid fire auto fire. So unlike arcade type games where you're sort of shooting with a game, like on Xenon 2, for example, you could just basically, with this joystick on auto fire, have this continuous stream. And you couldn't lose the game. All you had to do was move your ship around and you obliterated everything. I can't remember the name of that joystick now. But yeah, it was really weird. It had this auto fire that was just rapid fire. Took all the skill out of the game. Because Xenon 2 was a tough old game. Because no save positions. If you died, you died. Start again. Or back at... Oh, obviously, there'd be like checkpoints and stuff, but still. I mean, that's another thing. When you play World of Warcraft in games like this for so long, you even get out of the habit of playing a game where if you suddenly die and then think to yourself, oh shit, I've got to go back so far now. No, I know we can't. We're not doing very. It's your fault. It's you lot that talk about things. I don't decide the topics. I've thrown a couple of WoW topics in today. It's not my fault you've all gone off track. Maybe Blizzard haven't done anything interesting recently. Maybe there's nothing to talk about. We'll have to see if there's more things to discuss next week. You just want WoW to get back to being an RPG. Never happened. The majority of the player base isn't into that. Well, the player base has changed, and this is the thing. You know, it has to be understood that often some of the things that Blizzard have brought into the game, in terms of modernising it, are as a result of changing attitudes of players. Players don't, you know, by and large, players do want different games to what the players wanted 20 years ago. You've played WoW as a clicker for years. You need to learn to use a keyboard. Well, the time to learn to use a keyboard, to be honest, is between content. The ideal time is the end of an expansion. That's when I took the plunge, you know. At the end of an expansion where I wasn't going to be screwing over groups because you'll play poorly to begin with. Because there'll be a period of time when you're trying to wean yourself off it where you will play worse than when you're clicking while you just get used to it. But it doesn't necessarily take that long. You get through it. Then you get past the point where you're maybe round about as good as when you were clicking, and then it'll just go better from there. 8.1, is there enough content to bring people back? No. The thing is, once you lose people from a game, you might get some of them back, but you will have permanently lost a lot of them. You can't, and I don't know how many they've lost. I don't want to make numbers up. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, let's be nice and say 1 million. They've lost 1 million subscribers. Then maybe they can get 50,000 back. The vast majority are not going to come back because, you know, these will be people who were not very happy probably for a while. And then this will just be the final straw. Is light a wave or a particle? It's both. Depends how you want to treat it. But obviously light is a wave. Most things can be either a wave or a particle. But light, ultimately, you would just describe as a wave. You play WoW for so long that when you go and try and play another MMO, you get frustrated with the combat. See, I like the combat in Elder Scrolls Online. I don't like the animation cancelling. But then I don't have to, because I only play it for like doing the questing. You know, my character is plenty strong enough to do that, because, you know, Templar. With a caster stick. I don't even min-max all the abilities on it. You know, you can just use the same ones. It's awesome. Absolutely awesome. But, yeah, you say about clicking. The thing is, there was a time when clicking was absolutely fine. There was no problem whatsoever with clicking in vanilla and clicking in TBC. At all. Wrath at the start, you know, I mean, I was clicking and I was doing in a very competitive guild. Made no difference. But when I quit and then I came back at the end of Cataclysm. So then my first raid tier proper then progressing was Dragon Soul. By then, so many abilities had come into the game that I did struggle. I did really, really struggle. And my performance was not good enough. So after progress, I basically decided, right, I'm going to have to bind. Because the weird thing is with me, so like take vanilla, for example. So I used to click for DPS, but I used to bind anyway for healing. It was weird because you can't click for healing because you'd be moving. It'd be like, if this is my cursor. Oh no, this mouse button's not going to work. I'd have to click the person in the raid frames and then go down to the healing button that I want. Well, I'm going to kill people. There's too much of a delay. So what I used to do was hover over the raid frames and then I'd use my key binds for the heals. So as a healer, I used to bind anyway. But for DPS, I didn't. Because my cursor didn't have to move into the middle of the screen. It could just... Oh, come here. I could just like move it along a small number of buttons because there weren't that many. So it didn't seem worth key binding for that. But when there are lots of abilities, you sort of had to, really. Because you're moving too far around. When you play ESO, even for casual stuff, Magicka builds, I think, are superior to Stamina for the simple reason that you can load up on Magicka in terms of not only your gear, but your character. Whereas if you play a stamina-based character, not only could you potentially run out of stamina if you need to sprint or get out of a crowd control or to block, but also some of your abilities may use Magicka as well, and which basically means you can't use Magicka abilities because you won't have loaded up on Magicka. So I think that's what makes Magicka builds superior. That you can focus entirely on Magicka. You'll always have enough stamina to block and to whatever. And in combat, your resource is just Magicka. But anyway. MMO map. Oh, yeah. I mean, the mouse, I need to get rid of it now because it is now old and knackered. And the buttons are not properly working. But unfortunately, it's a G700S. I can't find a new one anymore. So I have got another game. Where's it gone? I've got one on standby somewhere. But I've got another mouse. It's just that the buttons are not the same. So what this has is you can sort of see, it has 4 thumb buttons there. I don't want more than that. More than that means I'll fat finger them or fat thumb them. I have 4. One of them is my auto run bind. One of them is shift. One of them is control and one of them is alt. And I use those as modifiers. So your keys that are in easy reach of your fingers, you can basically have triple the number of abilities. Well, quadruple really, because I can have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and Q, E and stuff like that. And then I can have the shift version of those, the control version of those, the alt version of those. And I've got loads of buttons without having to travel my hand around the keyboard. Razor Naga, though, you have to be careful with that. There's 2 potential problems. Obviously, some people love them. Mice, the most important thing about a mouse is it must fit your hand. And people have different hands, obviously. It needs to be comfortable. So the best thing to do is to find a decent store that has lots of mice, test them out, and then do what everyone does when they go to the high street, go back home and buy it off Amazon. So, yeah. So what I really wanted was a mouse that had... I wish I could find it now. But I can't. Oh no, I'm moving the light now. I don't know, it is somewhere. I need to go. I've probably lost the bloody thing now. But I have a mouse on standby. I always have a mouse on standby in case it breaks in the middle of like a... Oh, shit. In case it breaks in the middle of a raid or something. Now look what I've done. I've messed the light up. But it used to be that I would buy... You know, when I got a new G700S, I would buy another G700S. But now, this one's old and knackered and I couldn't find any. I think they might have discontinued it. Can't find it anywhere. So I've got to go for a new mouse, which is sad because you get used to a new mouse because it fits my hand perfectly and it has got perfect thumb buttons in exactly the right place, exactly the right number, exactly the right size. It's like the mouse that was designed for me. And so going to any other type of mouse is going to be tough. But then, you know, I am casual, so I suppose I'll put up with it. You prefer the Corsair Scimitar. Let's have a look at this then. Hold on. Because I tend to go for Logitech ones because I know that they will be comfortable for me. Oh, there's a Corsair Scimitar Pro. Let's have a look at that. Let us see this. Oh, no. Too many buttons. Oh, no. I know why you're comparing it to the Razer Naga now. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. Not happening. Steel. Ah, hold on. Your Steel series. Let's have a look then. Well, what sort of Logitech mouse do you have if it's got 4 buttons? What's it doing? I'm trying to see here. You use 1 sticky-sided sponge pads. Cut off a reel to fit over 4. So you've applied sticky tape to your sponge to your mouse. Okay. Corsair, yeah. That's 2. Yeah, 2's not enough. It's got to have at least 3. Really, 4 is better. And obviously, it's not going to have 3. So realistically, 4. Logitech G700. Yeah, mine's a G700S. Which I can't really find. Naga Trinity. See, the other problem with Naga, though, is the Naga... if it's the same size as a normal Naga mouse, it'll be too small for my hand. I will get RSI. Because it's not just about the buttons. No, see, that's no good either. It needs 4. It must have exactly 4. Having something over it that can change it to 2 wouldn't help. And having more than 4 wouldn't help. The more than 4 is a problem because of fat fingering. But the other problem with Razer Nagas is it's too small for me. Unless, of course, they have various sizes. But the one I tried once, which someone else had, I just give it a go, was too small. It's not comfortable fit for my hand. And that's the problem with the mouse. It's you know, there are potential injuries you can get with a mouse. It's like shoes, isn't it? You know, people go, "Ooh, those shoes look pretty. I'll buy those." But if it doesn't fit, you can do yourself some damage. And it's the same with the mouse. You can actually do yourself some injuries with a poor fitting mouse. The G502. Let's have a look then. Let's try these things out. Even though I have a mouse that I've already bought, But, oh, this actually looks like the one I might have got. It looks very similar to the one that I have somewhere that I've now put away, obviously, because I wasn't using it. So, yeah, it looks remarkably like the one I have somewhere in some cupboard. So that's the one I'm likely to, when I'll dig it out again and have to swap it, because this one, really, the mouse button, it is now completely knackered. Completely knackered. But yeah, the razor I tried, really, it just didn't fit. My hand was too big for it. So, and that's a complete, deal breaker. I'm not gonna knacker my tendons just for that. But anyway, we sort of started on World of Warcraft, veered very quickly off World of Warcraft, back onto World of Warcraft, and very quickly back off World of Warcraft again. So it's been a funny old one. But I'm going to have to call it there. So I'll just read this last comment. You've been looking for a new mouse, but you can't find one. Had a bad experience with a Corsair keyboard, so won't look at them again. I mean, it can be different. Sometimes a company can make a good product of one thing and not so much of another. But sometimes it's your personal preference and what fits you best as well. But yes, I shall have to call it there for tonight. Thank you very much for coming on. And until next time, I will see you later.